The female doctor looked up, and a look of shock suddenly crossed her face. The patient with a skin condition had actually picked up and played with her water cup without permission. This sight made her feel a strong sense of disgust right away. But the patient seemed totally unaware and asked her what kind of tea she was steeping in the cup. Lisa didn't even bother to look up. She just handed the prescription to the patient casually. Just then, the patient's phone suddenly rang. When Lisa saw the patient stand up to leave without paying, she immediately stared at the patient intently with a strange look in her eyes. Luckily, the patient quickly realized her mistake.
多少钱？10块。
After the patient slapped the money on the table and turned to leave, Lisa immediately took out a pair of tweezers from the drawer and clipped the money into the drawer with a look of disgust all over her face. Right after that, she picked up an alcohol cotton ball and wiped the water cup covered with fingerprints over and over again. She even wiped the lid, which hadn't been touched at all, a full 3 times. Finally, she threw the bacteria-covered cotton ball into the medical trash can. It turned out the patient who'd come to see her wasn't an ordinary person. She was the leader of the anti-pickpocket team organized by the police. And this doctor with a severe cleanliness obsession, her real identity was actually the mastermind behind the pickpockets at the train station. She also had a weird habit that even the cafeteria aunt couldn't figure out. She never ate meat.
天天吃这么素，能顶饿吗？习惯了。
Little did anyone know that the reason she ate vegetarian food every single meal was actually to hide a huge secret.
The beautiful doctor goes to the cafeteria to get food every day. However, the cafeteria staff noticed she never once ordered any meat dishes.
天天吃这么素，能顶饿吗？习惯了。
Little do they know, on the surface, she's there to get food, but in reality, she's observing the plainclothes police nearby. As the second in command of a pickpocket gang at the train station, she has been posing as a doctor, constantly monitoring these officers' every move. Yesterday, while treating a patient, she happened to notice a pair of handcuffs in his pocket. She instantly realized the police were likely planning a major operation near the train station. Once they identified a suspect, they would make an arrest immediately. However, the reason Anna is being so cautious is because they've landed themselves in a huge mess. A few days ago, they targeted a man from out of town who looked wealthy. Not only was he dressed in designer clothes, but the suitcase he carried was also exceptionally fine and expensive. To steal the contents of the suitcase, the pickpocket gang used a honey trap, successfully luring him to a hotel. But after they stole the suitcase, they discovered it contained a pair of corneas. What's worse, the intended recipient for these corneas was none other than the city's mayor. The doctor responsible for transporting the corneas was frantic with worry, but the police told him not to worry too much. The thieves must be even more anxious than they were right now, because they couldn't sell the corneas for cash. The only way to get rid of them was to sell them back to the doctor. So, by keeping the doctor under 24-hour surveillance, they would be able to catch the people who stole the corneas. While eating a chicken leg, the police officer was shocked to see a woman had fallen asleep on the train with her mouth wide open. But before he could warn her, the man sitting opposite her reached out his hand. The woman immediately woke up, demanding to know why he had touched her thigh. Their argument quickly drew the attention of other passengers. A good Samaritan was about to step in to help the woman, unaware that the two were putting on an act. They had also just stolen everyone's wallets around them. Now, with the helpful passenger blocking their way, they couldn't leave immediately. So, they intentionally made the argument louder in the carriage. Hearing the commotion, their accomplice immediately peeked his head out. After assessing the situation, the accomplice came out of the restroom. Before anyone noticed him, he used a razor blade to cut open a passenger's clothes, and quickly snatched the wallet that fell out. Next, he pulled a thread out from inside a piece of luggage. Then, he followed the thread to where the couple was arguing. With the accomplice's help, the two successfully transferred the stolen wallets, but their argument grew even louder, showing no signs of stopping. Meanwhile, the accomplice wasn't idle either. Seizing the distraction of their fight, he quickly tied all the luggage together with the thread. Then, with one sharp pull, all the luggage on the rack came crashing down. The falling luggage immediately captured the passenger's attention. Seeing this, the two thieves calmly walked to another carriage as if nothing happened. Their accomplice cut the thread, and before leaving, stole 2 more passengers' wallets. Then, he took all the wallets to the restroom, emptied them of cash, and threw the empty wallets off the train. What the three didn't know was the train was already infiltrated by undercover police. Not only had they been under surveillance since boarding, but their entire crime spree had been recorded on camera. While getting his watch fixed, Jack suddenly noticed something odd. The repairman's pinky finger seemed fake, like it was worn on purpose to hide his identity. This instantly put Jack on alert. He immediately asked what other jobs the man had done besides watch repair. The reply was, he once worked at a watch factory. He opened his own shop later because the pay was too low. Jack thought he might be overreacting, but just as he finished with the watch and was about to leave, he suddenly noticed birdseed by the door. It hit him right then. This repairman might actually be a top-tier pickpocket, because earlier that morning at the train station square, a strange theft had occurred. A station worker suddenly had an asthma attack. Then, while everyone was gathered around watching, a foreigner's wallet went missing. All that was left at the scene were a few grains of birdseed, and this birdseed looked exactly like the kind in the repairman's shop. He found a map vendor in the square. The vendor's story matched his guess perfectly. He sold maps there every day, but only today did a large flock of pigeons suddenly appear in the square. So Jack immediately went to find Anna at the station clinic. The worker who had the asthma attack was a regular at the station. If that employee often went to Anna for treatment, she would likely know about the worker's asthma and how to trigger it. He quickly sent an officer to look into the cause of the asthma attack. Just as he expected, that employee was allergic to bird feathers. Before each scam, the con woman would deliberately sit diagonally across from her target. Once seated, she'd intentionally brush her hair back. After using her looks to grab the man's attention, she'd quietly take a lipstick from her bag and pretend to accidentally drop it near him. She'd then stand up right away, but just as she reached his side to pick it up, she'd brush her hair back again, and as she bent down to grab the lipstick, her eyes would meet his. In that moment, her beauty instantly imprinted itself in his mind. Once Emma saw he was hooked, she pretended to twist her ankle as she stood up. Seeing this, the man quickly helped her sit in the seat next to him. Just like that, Emma smoothly got close to her target. But this was only the first step of her plan. Soon, the train arrived at the station. Emma got off first but didn't go far. She knew the man would come looking for her. To respond to Emma's flirtation, the man took out a piece of gum, chewed half of it, and then personally fed the other half to Emma's lips. In that moment, the flirtatious atmosphere peaked, but the man had no idea. The moment he fell for her, he'd completely fallen into Emma's trap. What Emma did next was find a way to ask for his home address.
现在是哪儿？
我家，我一个人住，
你家住哪儿？
滨海花园9号楼606。
With just an expression and a gesture, Emma smoothly got the man's home address. Then she pretended to worry about being tricked. Seeing she was hesitant to go home with him, the man immediately took her to the city's most expensive hotel. But while he was in the shower, Emma quietly stole the keys to his house. Before each scam, the con woman would deliberately sit diagonally across from her target. Once seated, she'd intentionally brush her hair back. After using her looks to grab the man's attention, she'd quietly take a lipstick from her bag and pretend to accidentally drop it near him. She'd then stand up right away, but just as she reached his side to pick it up, she'd brush her hair back again, and as she bent down to grab the lipstick, her eyes would meet his. In that moment, her beauty instantly imprinted itself in his mind. Once Emma saw he was hooked, she pretended to twist her ankle as she stood up. Seeing this, the man quickly helped her sit in the seat next to him. Just like that, Emma smoothly got close to her target. But this was only the first step of her plan. Soon, the train arrived at the station. Emma got off first but didn't go far. She knew the man would come looking for her. To respond to Emma's flirtation, the man took out a piece of gum, chewed half of it, and then personally fed the other half to Emma's lips. In that moment, the flirtatious atmosphere peaked, but the man had no idea. The moment he fell for her, he'd completely fallen into Emma's trap. What Emma did next was find a way to ask for his home address.
现在是哪儿？
我家，我一个人住，
你家住哪儿？
滨海花园9号楼606。
With just an expression and a gesture, Emma smoothly got the man's home address. Then she pretended to worry about being tricked. Seeing she was hesitant to go home with him, the man immediately took her to the city's most expensive hotel. But while he was in the shower, Emma quietly stole the keys to his house. The leader of the thief gang spotted it right away. The man had stuffed 200 gold bars into his bag, but he didn't make a move immediately. Instead, he waited until the man entered the train station and was about to go through security, then deliberately stepped on his shoe. He planned to steal the gold while the man bent down to fix it, but the man didn't bite. He was too cautious, unwilling to take the bait, so the leader moved to plan B. Once the man got to the waiting hall, an accomplice purposely spilled instant noodles all over him. While the man was washing his pants, another accomplice tried to snatch the gold, but the man was extremely careful. Even then, he kept the bag clamped tightly between his legs. George had no chance to grab it, so he stepped back and set Plan C in motion. When the man returned to the waiting hall after cleaning up, two volunteers walked up and tried to grab his bag, claiming he had requested their service. Of course, the volunteers were sent by the gang. George was hoping to snatch the gold while the man argued with them, but after everything that had happened, the man was already on edge. He called the police immediately, and just like that, George lost his chance. The man hadn't lost anything, but his gut told him those people were thieves. He started connecting the dots. First, someone stepped on his shoe, right as he was about to go through security. Then the instant noodles. But the noodles weren't even hot. Clearly, someone had been waiting for him. Finally, the so-called volunteers. Real volunteers wouldn't snatch a passenger's bag like that. It all added up. The police listened to his analysis, and immediately recognized it as organized crime. And if they were right, the thieves would almost certainly show up again, on the same train he was about to board.